plan that we're proposing here in the north of the site to wet up the habitat to improve, I believe it's the cranefly population, which is important for golden plover, an important species at the moment, I believe they're red listed, that will benefit the golden plover not being negatively affected by the project, so it's an enhancement rather than mitigation. What else was there? There was a comment about backup. Wind uses backup. Every form of electricity generation uses backup. All the nuclear stations that are being proposed will have backup. That's why we have the grid. Everything is backed up. If a wind turbine goes off, it's a couple of megawatts. Nuclear power station goes off, that's gigawatts that go off. Nuclear power stations trip off week in, week out. They are backed up. The idea that trying to reduce emissions by having wind turbines actually increases emissions is false. When a wind turbine generates electricity, that is a megawatt of electricity that doesn't need to be generated somewhere else. Some form of generation somewhere else is turned down. The forecasting for National Grid, I believe nowadays at a week out it is about 60% accurate, 24 hours out it's 90% accurate. When you get down to 15 minutes before the actual demand time, National Grid is within 99% accuracy of what our electricity supply needs are. They can manage what generation is needed. The whole wind farm fleet of the UK doesn't switch off all at the same time. The wind moves across the country bit by bit. We can manage what's doing. Smart grid is a form of management that will be coming in the future, but the idea that the UK's decarbonisation policies are futile is defeatist. The world is facing climate change on an unprecedented scale. We are staring 2 degrees warming in the face. This is going to negatively affect the poorest in the world so disproportionately it's unbelievable. We in the UK formed 1% of the global population and we emit 2% of CO2. What gives us the right to keep doing that? We have to do what we can. And the idea that turbines affect tourism, again, bonkers. Consistently, polls show massive support for wind energy. Even the Mail on Sunday, just this week, 70% of people in the UK support wind farms. The idea that everybody's going to run away from the countryside because they can see wind farms is nonsense. It's not being seen today. Yes, sir?
Can you tell me what happens if funding stops, please?
If funding stops for wind farms, in the form of renewables subsidies or support.
EU funding, yes.
EU funding. Well, it's not from the EU, but it's from within the UK. Well, if funding for wind farms were to stop, support for wind farms was to stop, I would hope that tax breaks for coal and gas would stop as well. That would push up the price of wholesale electricity, which would make renewables very competitive with everything else.
Okay, let's move on. Say something here. I'd just like to say something. Because you say about tourism. Now, I am brought up in the Dartmouth, and I have spent lots of days in the shores of Loch, and I ask lots of tourists. You may be speaking with the ones you speak to, but the ones I speak to say they will bypass this area of the turbines. They come here because the area is so special, and there's something here that a lot of people doesn't have, and it includes you, James. People go to Lochinvar and come to places like this because it's magical, spiritual, it lifts them. They want to be here, they want to see the openness. They don't want to come and see turbines. And you're saying that tourists won't, that they will come. That is untrue because I have evidence and I have spoken to thousands of tourists from shores of Lochinvar. And they're here because it is so special. So please don't tell me tourists will come here. Because they will not. A large proportion will not.
Well, other areas where they have lots of wind turbines haven't seen huge changes in tourism. I'm not going to say it's not going to be a change. Of course, these are big structures. There's no getting away from it. Modern turbines aren't big. But the degree to which they change the area is down to perception. A lot of places I go to, and I visit a lot of wind farms, you can still appreciate what is there. Sorry? Don't go to the...
Beside your house, you do have one beside your house?
No, I live in Edinburgh.
You don't want to do that
I
then?
would, well, no, I would.
Okay.
People do buy houses near wind farms. We operate, yes, they do.